Hi, everybody. Shavua Tov, starting another week. Amazing. Big week. Okay, so we're about to do chapter 26 in Ma'amar Heichaltzu. And the last time we met, which was ages ago, doesn't it seem that way? So we discussed the fact of the kind of relationship between the Chokhmah and Binah. Let's just read one of the really nice things about Chabad Chassidus in general is the way it's so organized. The teachings of the Chassidut of Chabad. Each chapter here has a brief summary afterwards. That's pretty amazing. So let's just read the summary of chapter 25. Havein b'chokhmah. What does it mean when the Sefer Yetzirah said that Havein b'chokhmah, that you should, I'm going to make a new term here, understandize. Understandize. Chokhmah, that's nitiyat chokhmah lavo b'hasaga. It's the fact that you take the seminal insight drop. Do you see on chapter 25, there's like a little summary at the end there? At the bottom, at the very bottom of chapter 25. Very bottom of chapter 25. That you should take the seminal drop of intuitive insight, and then that's called chokhmah, and then give it perception, right? Analytical depth, that's binah. So that's understandize chokhmah. And then it says in Sefer Yetzirah, chacham b'binah, nitiyat binah likalel b'nikudat tamsit. And that is the inclination of binah to become absorbed into an essential drop. Shnei kotzin ve'etzem hayud. So the fact we pointed out that the very way the yud is drawn, it has a protrusion up and a protrusion down from just the dot of the yud, and that's the two directions of chokhmah. So I want to point out just this last part, which I think is really super interesting, and that is that after you take the insight of chokhmah, which is not analytical, then you subject it to binah, which is to analyze it, then you bring it back to chokhmah, which is pretty amazing. You're not really bringing it back to chokhmah, you're chokhmahizing it. That is, you're taking the idea with all its parts and you're bringing it back to its essential dot. But this time it's a much more informed dot, because it's an dot which has gone through, it's sort of like dot, dimension, dot.
It sounds almost like synergy. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying in terms of what we've done?
Yeah.
Is the Shema. Because we talked about characteristics of the Shema, and then it goes back into the Shema again. You know, like we said, okay, there's Sovev. You know, like as you said, the first part of the Sovev.
Yeah.
And then Baruch Shem quote is the Malay. And so they like, okay, so that would be like Bina to describing the different parts of
beautiful.
It. And then, but later on when we do the Shema, it's like again.
We talked about this like in sort of both in the aesthetic realm of music. Like I remember we gave the example of like taking a music appreciation class, a music theory class. That of course, even the word music appreciation, right? If you understand something on a more the history of the piece, some of the musical theory aspect of the piece, that's going to help you appreciate the music. But if when you're listening to music, you're thinking of the history and then I think with Bach, for instance, there's been sort of mathematical analysis of Bach's music. So that's all Bina, that's all Binaizing something. But if you sit there and listen to it like that, I don't think that the composer wanted you to sit there and think about historical context, mathematical structure, etc. Just sit back, close your eyes, and enjoy it.
Otherwise, it's a force.
So, but you'll actually enjoy it more if you've gone through the Bina process. So it started out with, oh, I love Beethoven's Ninth, right? But I don't know anything about it. I just know I like listening to it. Okay. Then you take a music appreciation class. Then you say, oh man, this is amazing. It's even a more amazing piece than I thought. Then you go into the next time you do it, then you go to a concert. You got to press, in a certain sense, you don't press the delete button on all the theory you learned, right? But you got to sit back and not think about the musical context and the mathematical precision. Just enjoy it again, but you're enjoying it again on a much higher level of richness. We also gave the scientific analogy of Einstein, where you could have like just an insight, and then you try to put it on the chalkboard in all your mathematical formulas. And then you want to come back to, well, can I reduce this down to one simple theory which explains everything, right? The universal field theory, which I think he never found, but it was sort of the quest for the Holy Grail, as it were. So there's this kind of like tripartite. It's an amazingly profound description of the sort of way we process things. Undifferentiated intuitive flash, analytical churning of the processing of the intuitive flash, now return it back, but it's not really turning back, it's going forward into the dot, into the generality, but as informed by and more deeply appreciated because of the function of the analytical aspect. Or as Zev just said it, you could say, use the forest and the trees analogy, right? So forest, trees, back forward to the forest, but this time with a higher level of appreciation. Okay, so that was chapter 25. Okay, chapter 26. So according to this, it turns out that you have something in its opposite. So when you look at Chokhmah and Binah, they're really not the same thing. When you say forest and trees, they're the opposites. Like someone played at Jeopardy, or I don't know what exactly the game would be. Okay, now I'm going to say something. You tell me a kind of term or metaphor or image that's the opposite. Forest, trees, forest. Chokhmah, Binah, Chokhmah. Okay. Shehu hefek b'chinat nekudat yud Chokhmah. Right, Binah is the opposite of the dot of the yud of Chokhmah. Right, because Chokhmah is the aspect of nothingness. It's the absence of being spread out analytical. When we but nevertheless, the Chokhmah and the Binah actually unify. It's not that the Binah comes out of nowhere. The Binah acted upon the Chokhmah. They're interrelated. And then there's an aspect of the Binah in the Chokhmah, right? Because the fact that an idea could be processed going through Chokhmah to Binah is because there is a Binah potential within Chokhmah. Like, what's propelling it forward? What's propelling that undifferentiated dot into the dimensionality of Binah? It's because there's a Binah energy or momentum within the Chokhmah itself. Shuinyan havein b'Chokhmah. That's what Sefer Yitzirah means when it says havein b'Chokhmah. That you should Binah-ize Chokhmah. Shebechinat Binah klula b'Chokhmah dafka. That the aspect of Binah is actually absorbed in Chokhmah, right? It's a potential, it's a momentum, it's directionality, which is in Chokhmah itself. In order that Chokhmah can flow outward through hitpashtut, spreading outward to dimensionality. And then that's the taking the potential of Binah within Chokhmah and actualizing it. Befall. Befall means in actuality. Koach means potentiality. Befall means actuality. Hefek etzem mehuta. V'chein mi shenaseh migilui hasaga de Binah b'chinat ayin v'helem de koach ma de nekuda de chokhmah shezehu inyan v'chacham b'Binah. And the same thing, when you're able to take the forest, made it into Binah, the trees, but then you take the trees, and then you see the forest again, to use that image. Shezeu hefek muta Binah, right? That to get from the trees to the forest, or from the music appreciation course to just enjoy the music, or from the detailed mathematical formula on the board to the unified field theory, right? That's going from Bina to a Chokhmah again, right? Even though they seem to be opposite things. Vim came here in Nasem Elam the Kudat the Chokhmah Gilui Basagal Migilui Hasaga the Bina Nasa Elam the Nikudat the Chokhmah Davar Bibucho Keachad. So you see what's happening here is that well, there was a word I think that was used here. Maybe Zev used it. And synthesis. Synergy. Yeah. That even though detail, generality, detail, they seem like opposites. There's a synergy. There's an interplay between the two. And that interplay, in fact, is a function of the fact that within each is the impulse towards each other. That the forest has a kind of inner momentum towards the trees, and the trees has an inner momentum towards the generality of the forest. Now here's the punchline. So what is the force which somehow creates the relationship between the general and the detail and the general, the detail and the general and the detail? It's because there is a third force. This almost sounds like some weird physics thing or a science fiction movie or something. There's a third force. The third force is that there's some kind of force which is koach elyon, a higher force. Elyon for the word aliyah, right? Like yom aliyah to the Torah. A third force which is even higher, which creates the synthesizing capability between these two things that look different. Okay, hang on. Vahainu mi bechinat atzmut or ein sof shalamala mi bechinat habechinot tehelam v'gilui. It's because of the essence of the light of the infinite, the or ein sof. Now, the truth of the matter is, Larry, you're making a really good point here. We'll talk about that in just a second. Desham shneim shavim. So he's not calling it Tiferet. Tiferet would be the third of the Sfirot, right? Because you have Chokhmah, right? That's the dot. You have Binah, which is the dimensionality. And then, so Larry said, well, maybe the Tiferet that would be like a synthesis is a nice word for Tiferet. That's the harmonization between the two. So it's interesting. He's saying that it's not necessarily Tiferet, but he used the term or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite one. So this higher light, which then, now the truth of the matter is, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. So just hang on 1 second, because I want to get some caffeine into my racked body here. Hold on a second. I love your point, Larry, because what creates the greatness of Tiferet, that's the harmonization force, which is a result of the synthesis between Chokhmah and Binah. That's the attribute of Yaakov, right? Yisrael. We're not called B'nai Avraham. We're not called B'nai Yitzchak. We're called B'nai Yisrael, the third, because that's Tiferet. Why? Because Tiferet represents the synthesis, the perfect balance of Chokhmah and Binah. What gives it that capacity? So I think there's real truth to what you're saying, Larry, that there's sort of two ways of looking at what is the force which allows for the synthesis between Chokhmah and Binah, the interplay between those two. So the way the author here described it, it's a higher force, Koach Elyon, a higher force, and that's Or Ein Sof, light of the Holy One. There's actually two ways of looking at it. I think maybe I'm kind of venturing out on a limb here, so I hope the limb doesn't crack and fall. Maybe we can say the following. The force which allows for the synthesis would be a higher force. And higher almost by definition if you only look at it spatially, right? It has to be higher than Chokhmah and Binah. So when you look at the flow of the divine creative forces, what's higher than Chokhmah and Binah? So, or Ein Sof, right? This divine light, which is higher on the chart, flowing down into the Sfirot. So that's the source of the synthetic capability. What's the result? Tiferet. Right. So that would be a nice way to describe it, that the force which allows for the synthesis of Chochmah and Binah is Or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite one. And then the result of the synthesis is Tiferet. So there's a beautiful connection between Or Ein Sof and Tiferet, right? And that's why Tiferet, that's why we're B'nai Yisrael, right? That we're linking into Or Ein Sof, but Or Ein Sof has been processed through the creative flow downwards, which is the balance of Chochmah and Binah. So Or Ein Sof creates Chochmah and Binah synthesis, and then coming down to the Tiferet. The Sham Shneim Shavim Lachen Efshar Liot Misham Ha'achdut V'Itchalut Liot Me'Helem Gilui U'Migilui Ehelem. That's why, because of this higher light coming down, Or Ein Sof, that there can be this unity and the synthesis together, there can come from the nothingness revelation, and from the revelation going back but forward into the nothingness. And we'll stop at that point. We finish a whole chapter. We'll go tomorrow with chapter 27. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing day.